Welcome to another video by LDS Nerds, the Obscure Gospel History series. In this video, we explore the history of the town of Orderville, Utah, one of the longest lasting and most successful United Order communities in early Utah history. In the early days of the church, several attempts were made to live the law of consecration in as complete a manner as possible, including communities based on cooperative living. These types of communities were unsuccessful for various reasons. During his tenure, President of the Church and Prophet Brigham Young preached cooperation and consecration as a means of economic stability. After the financial crisis known as the Panic of 1873, he and other church leaders started to encourage saints to live according to principles of the law of consecration, once again aiming for the model of the city of Enoch, where there was no poor among them. The United Order of Enoch was established in February of 1874, and in the subsequent years around 150 communities were established based on the principles of communalism. The guiding principles of exactly how these communities should operate were somewhat vague, and various methods of integrating consecration into living conditions were attempted, with most lasting less than 5 years total. One of the longest running and most successful of these communities was the town of Orderville, Utah. Established in March of 1875, the town was incorporated a few months later by about 24 poor families, totaling 150 residents, from the failed colony near the Muddy River in Nevada, who were then living in Mount Carmel. These settlers owned little, and therefore had nothing to lose, and were much less tied to older traditions than their peers. Each resident of the community participated in a ceremony that included a baptism and were placed under a covenant to obey the rules of the order. In Orderville, no property was owned. Rather, individuals and families were made stewards over personal effects and their connected shanty homes. In addition to homes, a dining hall, apartment house, shops, and a schoolhouse were built in the community. Women took turns running the dining hall, and meals were strictly scheduled, and men ate separately from women and children. A deal made with local natives granted the town grazing rights, which included some of the best grazing land in the area. The community grew its own food, made their own clothes, leather goods, furniture, and tools, and sold their excess goods to other areas in Utah, purchasing whatever they could not make. They started raising cotton in 1876, expanding their clothing capabilities. Young children went to school, while midwives and eventually a doctor took care of medical needs. Every able-bodied person had something they were assigned to do in the community. The town contributed to both St. George and Manti temple constructions, supported missionaries, and even paid tithing of 10% of the order's increase each year to the church. Production of the community was high, and by 1880, the order had nearly $80,000 in assets, or over $2 million in today's money. Originally, little record-keeping was done, and individual accounts were not used. However, Brigham Young asked that communities keep records, use accounts, and set credits or pricing to prevent adverse action from anyone that were to withdraw from the community. The town started with a credit-based record system initially and moved to a price-based system after 1877. Distribution of goods was handled through a bishop's storehouse, and by 1880, both leftover credits and debits on accounts were essentially evened out and started fresh each new year. The government of the society consisted of an annually elected board of management of 9 men. New members were admitted to the order only following a favorable vote of 2/3 of the residents. When members withdrew from the community, they were given back their capital investment and their surplus for that year, and any debts were canceled. At its height, the area boasted about 700 residents. By the end of the 1870s, things started to change, marking the start of the eventual end to this communal experiment. The economy in southern Utah had improved in recent years. Silver was discovered less than 50 miles from Orderville, and the wealth that resulted from its mining allowed outside residents to buy imported clothing and store goods, making the Orderville products pale in comparison. Orderville youth, who already were unlikely to acquire capital stock in the community, having not invested any to begin with, started to compare their situation and their possessions to nearby outside communities. This caused feelings of jealousy and envy, including a brief rebellion of the boys of the community wearing out their pants early in order to get the latest styles made. In 1880, communal dining ceased. By 1883, the wage system was changed to allow different credits by types of labor, and families were given special money from the order to do their own purchasing. This last decision, combined with a related one which allowed a form of individual stewardships more akin to ownership of both land and shanties, divided the group, and several families withdrew as a result. At the encouragement of church leaders, the remaining group continued on until 1885 and the enforcement of the Edmunds Act. Originally passed in 1882, the Edmunds Anti-Polygamy Act prohibited bigamous or unlawful cohabitation. Since some of Orderville's residents, including its leadership, lived in plural marriages, many went into hiding and several were eventually arrested and jailed, including the town president. In 1885, 10 years after its beginning, the members of Orderville voted reluctantly to disband, and an auction for its assets was held using community credits as a way to divide property. During the 1890s, some of the former residents moved to Chihuahua, Mexico, and started a community similar to how they had previously lived. Although at times there was discontent, especially towards the end, Orderville was a place of fond memories for many of its residents, with one former member commenting that, quote, "I never was so attached to a people. I never experienced greater joy, nor had better times than during the period of time I was connected with the United Order in Orderville." Orderville, Utah was an experiment in living the law of consecration that elevated the economic status of its destitute residents, and stood as an example for what cooperation and selflessness could achieve, if only for a few years. The united purpose, dedication to communal principles, and hard work of its members served as an example to all other communities that attempted a similar test of late 19th century human nature. The town still remains today, with around 600 residents, and boasts a Daughters of Utah Pioneer Museum open during the summer. That's all for this video. Let us know in the comments any topics you would like to see covered in the Obscure Gospel History series, and please like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching another LDS Nerds creation. Visit our store for geeky gospel-themed merchandise.